Alright, here we are at Ryde. So, this is, again, like the previous video, the day after our really bad weather. But at Ryde here, we're all fine. No damage here, because you can see they're much better sheltered here, being surrounded by all this bramble, which is out unseasonably early. This is definitely early for bramble here, but it's very specifically at Ryde where it seems to be early. It's not out at Carisbrooke, and so Carisbrooke is getting a little bit hungry. There's not much honey in there for them. At Ryde, we seem to be packing it away really nicely, and you see they're lovely and busy here. We've got lots of action at the entrance to this one. But again, I am on the clock because we are behind. So as we go down the line, my notes: this one wasn't queen right, but isn't likely to swarm. This one is bait, so definitely not likely to swarm here. This one's only just had their queen mated. This is my smoker fuel here. This one is queen right, but is only on 4 frames, so there's really very little chance of them swarming. So I don't need to look at them today, and I'm just trying to pack everything into the one day, because it looks like the weather's going to be a bit grim tomorrow, and with no guarantees on Friday either. This one is also queen right, and it's probably all right. And if I remember, yeah, there we go. This is the one that I'm interested in. So this one, the queen has been replaced. So I did a queen split. The queen is over there is over that way in a different colony, and we are now where we are superseded. So, but this one, here's my notes. I'll just, if you can, I'm sure it's 2 weeks ago. Definitely superseded because I saw a virgin queen who then flew off. This happens every now and again. Every now and again the queen will fly off. It shouldn't happen, but I think she just went. Now, every time that it's happened to me before, and it's probably only 3 times in my entire career that I've witnessed the queen flying off mid-inspection, she's come back. This one hasn't, I'm pretty certain. So my note from last time: if there's still no eggs in the final week, so this is the final week that we'll do it, and what I will do if they're still not queen right is I will combine them with the one next to, which is queen right. Now that will be an interesting procedure. I'll talk you through it now. We'll see. I think it's probably likely that this video will continue on to me doing it. So you have bees from 2 different colonies, okay? They are next to each other, so they're relatively accustomed to each other. But if I just put them together, they would fight. And so this is where newspaper comes in. And what you do is, we call it newspapering in. I put the queen right one under... Sorry, I just pushed the button there. So what happens when we newspaper in is I put the queen right one underneath, then I put a layer of newspaper over the top, and then I put the other brood box on top of them. Now we pierce a couple of little holes just so air can get through, and it gives them somewhere where they can get a start at nibbling through. But by the time that they have nibbled through, they are accustomed to the smell of each other, and the ones without a queen can smell that there's a queen underneath, and they're inclined to accept the new queen, and they should then all happily combine up and live together, and that will then give us a really, really nice strong colony. So what happens is I come back the next week, I work out where the brood is on there. I will probably put a queen excluder under, so it'll mostly be under. If there's a bit of jigging around to take light frames out and put nice ones in, and I do that, I try and get them all back down into one brood box and put a super on the top, and they should then give me honey. So I'm going to light the smoker, get my gloves on, go and remember to get the newspaper because I've left it in the car, and we will proceed with that. Okay, so here we are with the lid off, and actually the numbers of bees have depleted quite a bit here, so this combine is probably fairly necessary. Otherwise I'll maybe even, well, without a queen, they're in a bit of trouble. So we're just going to look through for eggs, basically. If there's eggs, change your plan. If there's not, they're getting newspapered in. So I'll pop you down here. I don't need to start right at the edge because I'll start on this one actually. We have easy peasy blank frames to undrawn frames to get out. So just break the propolis there. So nothing on there. Right, first frame of interest. Now without brood to do, they will have put some nice stores away. So these frames, absolutely chock full of honey. Look at that, lovely. And they're putting more away. So how I know that they've put more away, and there's relatively fresh there, we've got this nice new glistening stuff in there. Now that darker patch is pollen, and that's all good stuff. But again, the pollen, the surplus of pollen indicates that they're not feeding it to grubs, you see. And then this white lovely stuff, that's wax capped stores. So that frame is all stores. That's just lovely. So let's get these off the squish zone. Ooh, beekeeping in wind. That little gust just flicked the frame out of my hand. So when I'm putting the frames back and bringing them in and out, I'm always trying not to touch the edges. You'll notice that I'm always quite slow with it because we don't want to crush bees between the frame and the edge. Careful now. And then yeah, beekeeping, you can probably hear the wind in the trees. We're pretty sheltered here, but it's still not great. So again, no sign of brood on there. And this frame in particular has a lovely kind of brood space. So I'll show you. If you remember the video where I was helping Mum, she talked about it, and she explained it very nicely. Where you get this nice sort of rainbow shape of brood here. There we go. Here, so they've got nice empty cells ready for a queen to lay in. Same on this side, and not an egg to be seen. So I think that queen just flew off and just got lost. I think she was very young. And it's ever so sad, and it's, you know, it's a disappointment because it means I'm going to be down a hive. But we will use these bees, we will make them useful, they will join another hive and become productive. Be good for, you know. So nothing is wasted. I try never to let bees be wasted like that. Now here we go. Right here in the centre, I'll try and hold it steady, is the remnants of the queen cell that queen was hatching out of. You see they start to break it down. It's looking pretty rough now. But again, no evidence of eggs on this frame. Look out. Which is a pity. Ooh, again, just nudging the sides there, which just the knock to the frame, it starts to annoy the bees. You might have noticed the buzz change a little bit there. And they don't like that. And I'm now getting investigated a little bit more by these bees who started off pretty calm just because the wind knocked that frame into the side of the hive. And they just don't like it. So I've just got only 2 more frames that are worth looking at. Again, not a trace. Not a trace. So the queen, if she was present, she'd have had time to get mated now. And she's, you know, she's just, you know, and then to come on to lay. And there's just no way. So these are queenless. So because they're queenless, most of these will be quite old bees as well. So that, you know, they'll be foraging bees. So adding foraging bees to the other hive is entirely of benefit, especially here where there's a pretty good nectar flow on. So they will be able to pile away lots more pollen and particularly honey for the other ones. Last one that's worth looking at. Here's interesting. Nothing to do with sort of the general thing here. Right, this frame, and this is where the weather's been poor. You can see these little circles of bees, and what you can also see is that capped honey with completely empty cells in between. Now that suggests that they're eating that honey to live on because they've not been able to forage. I'll just draw back a little bit. So when they fill the frame, they kind of fill the cells fairly uniformly. So you will have a nice even gradient. The most honey will be in the centre ones, but then there will be sort of a nice gradient out to the least honey at the edges. When they eat whole cells at a time, and so you get this sort of spottiness in the honeycomb, with completely empty frames, empty cells in amongst like that, and then, you know, uncapped and then completely empty next to, and that kind of indicates that they've been eating the honey a little bit to live on, because of this bad weather. So the bad weather's only been about 4 days, but it's one to watch, because obviously the hives that eat the most are the ones with the most mouths to feed, the most bees in. So this one isn't that much, but, you know, and so that's only a little bit, and they've got loads of honey still stored there. But I do have to just keep an eye on my biggest frames. If we had persistent bad weather, my biggest hives rather, if we had persistent bad weather, that would be a thing to check. So I'm definitely going ahead with this combine. So I'll just not exactly close up, but I will just put this frame in. I always take a frame out and try and leave it to the side if there's one that's not got anything important on, to give me room to work. And then I always also push up. So you see these frames are self-spacing. I've probably not talked about this. So they have this bee space, this 6mm bee space, with a little bit more, because where I use a little brad nail or a mini nail gun to nail them together, there's always a little bit proud there, which I don't mind, but it means that they're evenly spaced. If I left them, say, like that, the bees would draw out the honeycomb to the 6mm bee space in between. So it would be proud at this end. You see where I've put them on the wonk if I left them like that and left them to it. And the next time I come to inspect, when I push it together, I might absent-mindedly push it together to the thing and squash bees here, because there isn't that gap. So I am always fairly fastidious about making sure that I leave the hive all pushed together like this. The only place where I don't do that is in the supers, because I actually quite like the honeycomb to be proud for that. When we get to extraction in a couple of weeks, I'll show you why. And then you've got two different formats as well. So you can have these runners that allow you free movement. You also have castellated ones. They're a bit like a castle wall with little slots in that the frames go into, and that's where they go. And I quite often think I quite like runners for brood boxes that I can push together and everything. Well, I often think I'd quite like the castellated ones in my supers, but I've just never got round to ordering them. You know, when we order in bulk, we get these runners. You know, we just get loads of them, and then they go in, and having to sort of two different types of stock to inventory with my personal organisation, which we've discussed before, would not go at all well. So, on with the job in hand. So we're combining them into one, which means I need to put the one in the centre of both, so the flying bees from both can both come back to the same one. And the flying bees, so you think, well, some of the flying bees will be from the other hive. Would the guard bees from the bottom hive fight them? Probably not, because bees have kind of a bring a bottle policy. If a strange bee comes into it comes to the landing board here, and the guard bees stop her, if she's got nice stuff, they'll let her in, even if she's a strange bee. She will regurgitate from her honey sac, or nectar sac rather, just a little bit of nectar to bribe her way in, and they'll let her in. They don't let in hungry bees, because hungry bees are maybe trying to come in to rob. But foraging bees, guard bees, will tend to let in. So full bees coming back from flowers, coming through into this one, which will be the bottom one, will be let in. The bees that are in the colony are going to need to be above the newspaper, just so that the bees have got enough time to acclimatise before they actually are able to fight each other. And I have a really good success rate with this. Now, not everything in beekeeping is always 100% successful, but I've never had too much of a problem with this. Now, I just need some space here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this up, and then I'll come back to you, because this is going to take both hands and concentration, and it's not going to be very interesting to watch. All done. So I've moved the hives across half a hive width. That possibly doesn't show, but where that roof is sort of where that hive mostly was. So half a hive width. So this is now situated halfway between where the two were first time round. So, doing this in the wind is no fun at all. Just put a handy grip on. There we go. All right. So I am going to want to just get rid of this brace comb. Burr comb, as they do call it in America. Two nations divided by one language, as they say. So, dun dun dun. So, sorry, my face isn't the interesting bit here. So I've just smoked them off this, just so So I just want to be a little bit careful, because you can hurt bees doing this, and you know, some beekeepers are of the opinion that, you know, bees, there's plenty more where that one came from. But I tend to just sort of have a principle of every bee matters. If I can save them, I do. So we've just done that so that we're flush, because I don't want to be proud on this. Now this is going to be slightly irritating, one-handed, and in this breeze. If the breeze gusts up, we're quite sheltered here, but we're not perfectly sheltered here. So usually 2 sheets of the local fish wrapper will see us right. Now the important bit, if you don't poke holes in, and my mum was saying that she finds that she doesn't have to, but I've had it just once, there's a bee under there, just once, where if I haven't poked just a little bit of a hole, the bees seem to not find anywhere where their little teeth can get purchased to chew through. So I've just pierced a couple of holes there to give them an edge to get started on. And then we will put this one here, like that. There's that breeze we talked about. Oh my goodness. Where's an assistant camera person when you need one, eh? Now what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to put you way over there so you get a really long perspective of this next part. Probably me up and about, so I'll try and raise my voice, but I don't want to shout because there's other people working here. Right, there we go. You get to witness me just internalising some rage there, because the breeze was not my friend. It is the lightest of breeze. But yeah, so here's the score from the previous one. Now these bees will maybe not be that fat, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shake them in the top here. And there's that bit of burr comb that I've been watching far too many American ones using American beekeeping terms. It doesn't really matter. I'm looking at my analytics. 75% of my audience is in America, so I will continue to call it burr comb without any self-consciousness. And if British beekeepers raise an eyebrow with me when I say it, well, that's a thing. People raise their eyebrow with me all the time, so I'm comfortable with it. All right, so this is going to be quite tricky one-handed. Ah, no, it won't. What I'll do, I'll pop you there. Just shake these bees into the top, so they're on the correct side of the newspaper. Now you sometimes see people do things like put a little midway entrance or an entrance at the top of the hive, but I've not found that necessary myself. It'd be nice. It's just a whole other piece of equipment to remember. And remembering things, not necessarily my strong point. So, roof back on. So what I'd anticipate when we come back next week, it will still look like this on the outside, but on the inside there will be a perfect little chewed thing, square, that they've chewed through to each other, and there will be confetti strewn out through there. They don't like to keep it in the hive. They pull it through and card it out the front and chuck it out. And then the only other thing to do now, this is the roof from the top one, so I must consolidate my notes as we put on the top there, so that I know what I've done next week, although it should be pretty obvious because none of my other hives look like this. So I hope that has been interesting and informative, and if you did find it interesting and informative, do please hit that like button, as that helps other people to find us. Do please subscribe. Again, more subscribers helps other people to find us. Please share on other social media platforms if you're able, that would be wonderful. And I will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.